Hey everybody, this is Shelita Taylor, and I'm here to tell you a little story. If I were to title my story, I would call it Growing Forward. Okay, so we're gonna go back 1, 2, maybe 3 decades, possibly more. And I want to tell you guys a little bit of how I became the person who I am today. My roots go back to a very small town called Inverness, Florida. And it is a very rural part of Florida. When a lot of people think of Florida, you think of Disney and beaches and Miami and good times. But what you don't realize is that in the center of the state and a little bit further north, things are a little bit different. And so I grew up in a very conservative town, surrounded by very conservative people. And I was always a little bit different as a kid. And when it comes to coming out, my story is vastly different than a lot of other people's, because I had a very supportive family. Coming out was not really a big deal in the grand scheme of things. There were a couple family members who were like, kind of, oh, well, we knew, but, my home was always my safe space. I was always free to be myself, to express myself however I wanted to at home. But growing up as a gay boy in a very rural town in the South, in Florida, the outside world is what was tough for me. I knew when I came home from school every day that, if I wanted to go into my bedroom and blast Madonna and dance around, that was okay. I was free to do that. But if I were to listen to Madonna on the bus on the way to school, or dance to one of her songs in a talent show, or sing one of her songs in a talent show or something like that, I was ridiculed. It started off, ridiculed is a very polite way to say it. I was bullied a lot, an awful lot. And to the point to where with certain people who I thought would have my back did not, but I'm not gonna go there. But yeah, it was a form of torture. It started off in elementary school. Before I even knew what the word gay meant, they would call me the cheerleader, because I was always performing and doing stuff like that. I'm like, I'm not a cheerleader, but that's how it started. Then I went into middle school, and middle school was probably the most traumatic years of my life, as it is for a lot of gay kids. I personally have a nephew who identifies as LGBT+, and he's in middle school right now, and I'm in the same area I grew up in, and I'm talking to him and hearing his stories, and it takes me back to who I was then and what I went through then. And I'm fortunate to say he didn't go through what I went through. He's not going through what I went through. I was thrown into lockers, bunch of kids ganging up on me, calling me, queer, the F word, which I refuse to say. I've heard it too much in my life, and I won't say it, and I don't like it when I hear other people say it, even from other gay people. The F word was printed into my psyche from a very early age. And I was actually raised to be afraid of coming out. Coming out could have actually harmed me. It could hurt me. I could lose my life if people found out who I really was. That was the fear that was ingrained in my mind. It was a very Christian community, which I am a very spiritual person. I do consider myself a child of God, and I'm grateful to God every day. But the version of God that they were trying to portray to me, every time I went to a youth group, the other kids that went to my very small high school would make sure, "Do you hear that? Who you are is a sin." Now, I wasn't even out. I was so afraid to come out because of all the bullying I was already going through by not being out. I'm like, the idea of, and I knew when I was like middle school age, 13, 14, who I was. I did know. And I did everything I could to possibly try to hide it, but it was impossible because, hello, I'm a flamboyant gay boy in the middle of a country town. I stand out like my nails do. It's like there was no hiding it. Everybody knew, but I was in such denial and I lived in such fear that I didn't come out till I was 17. I had girlfriends, I was in ROTC trying to be military, I would play football with kids on the weekend, I tried to do everything I possibly could to subdue the person I was. And then right around the time I was 17 is when there was a movie that came out that really inspired my coming out. It's called, and I suggest you all watch it. It is with Paul Rudd and Jennifer Aniston. It's called The Object of My Affection. And I had seen it on HBO one night, and I recorded it. I was, back in those days, you just set the VCR on and just let it record whatever it was going to record, right? So this movie was recorded, and I watched it, and Paul Rudd's character was so normal. He was a guy who just happened to be gay, and they portrayed him in such a normal way. I had not seen that before. And I identified with him so much in that role. And me watching that movie was probably what helped me come out. That's why LGBT media is so important and why our visibility is so important. Because a simple movie like that, back in those days, it really, those kind of things really, really touch. So I watched that movie over and over and over again. And, it's, now that I'm a little bit older, the storyline's a little bit more complex, and I'm like, oh, that's not really, a great story to be told. But at that time, it was such a refreshing view of who a gay person was that I'd never had living in this small town. There were a couple other gay kids around, a couple of kids who were a few years older than me that had come out, but they took off and they left town. Like, you don't stay in Inverness if you're gay. You don't do it because you're gonna be ridiculed. You're gonna have people who take you down a back road and whoop your behind ass, if I can say it. Those are just the realities you have to live in, So after I had watched that movie, I was doing a theater show over the summer, and I had talked to a friend of mine who was in the show with me, and I had told her that I thought I might be bisexual. Because by the time I was 17, I had signed my first management deal to go into acting and singing. I had been doing it since I was a kid. I landed a management deal, and there was a boy who was openly flamboyant, as gay as you can be. He was a ballet dancer, and I was just infatuated with him. It was like, oh my gosh, this is who I want to be. And we had worked together throughout the workshops of the summer because we were both in the same management contract. And he really, his name's Robbie, he really helped me figure out who I am. And by the end of the summer, I had come out to my two best friends, Alicia and Octavia. And coincidentally, that day that I came out to my two best friends was 9/11, believe it or not. That morning, before anything had happened, I had gotten the gusto, and I said, I'm gonna tell my two best friends, if anyone's gonna have my back through this, it's these two girls. And these two girls are still my best friends to this very day. And so my whole coming out to them, which was supposed to be such a big dramatic experience for me, got, overshadowed by everything that happened on 9/11, thank goodness, because that could have been a lot more, with the day that it happened, really coincidence, but it's another level of what that day meant for me. So I told my two best friends, and slowly I had started feeling a little bit more comfortable with myself. I had, at this point, am now surrounding myself with other gay people, a few of which I didn't even know were gay. And I still hadn't made like the public announcement. I had spoken to my mother, and when I spoke to my mom, like I said, I come from a very accepting family, especially my mom. My mom has been my rock and has had my back since day one. And I wrote a letter, and I walked into her room and I said, "Mom, I have to talk to you about something." And I was very dramatic, and I was already building myself up. I'm a theater kid, you know how we are. So I do that, and I read the whole letter to me, and she's like, "Really? That's it?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I thought you were gonna be so upset." And she's like, "Baby, I've known since you were young. Whatever. Okay, let's move on with life." So I went through that whole dramatic thing. So now I have my mom behind my back, and she's like, "Don't let anybody else in the family know yet. We'll deal with that later." Okay. So I just started to blossom and just started to really come into my own. And even like my teachers were speaking amongst themselves. I found out later, like, did Jason finally come out? Did he? Because he's really kind of, of course, as every young gay boy does, I bleached my hair. I was wearing 2 earrings in each ear, all kinds of jewelry. I was wearing like pleather pants to school. I was fierce all of a sudden. And it's amazing that a lot of the people who were out to get me, a lot of the people who slammed me into lockers, who would shout horrible names at me as they were leaving the parking lot in school, all of a sudden, they had nothing to say, because I was finally owning who I am. And I stopped letting the fear of what would happen if they find out take over me just opening up and expressing myself. And if it wasn't for that, I would have never even had the nerve to get on stage in front of my high school and perform in drag, which was a huge thing for me, because when I was getting bullied, when things were getting really violent, I'd gone to the dean of the school, the assistant principal, and I'd gone there often because I voiced my opinion. I'm like, how I'm being treated in this school is not right. The way that I have to worry about if I'm gonna make it from one class to the other, I shouldn't have to go through that. And I would go to the school administration, and they will deny this to this day, I'm sure. But I would go to the school administration, to the dean, and I said, "These kids are doing this, this, and this to me, and nobody's doing anything about it. You guys are letting it happen. I report this all the time, nothing gets done, and every time I report it, it actually gets worse. My head is slammed into a locker, I've been pushed down to the ground, I've sprained my ankle, I'm physically getting my butt kicked, and you're doing absolutely nothing." And you know what they said to me? "Well, if you didn't behave the way you behave, none of this would be happening to you. None of this would be happening to you if you were not flamboyant, if you were not over the top, if you were not into theater, if you were not into music, if you were not into those things. None of this would happen to you." So the problem wasn't the kids bullying me, it was me. I was taught that I was the one with the problem. I was the one who was creating all of this. I was just trying to be me. So for me to be able to get to the point to where I can stand in front of all of those kids and all my very, very terrible drag, Christina Aguilera glory, and come out of it and blossom, I've now recorded an album. I've been on an international TV show. I'm a national award-winning drag queen. And that's all because I had people who loved me having my back, and I left that small town and I left all of them behind. And now as I've blossomed and become the most confident person I think I've ever been in my adult life, yes, I had to deal with the demons. I had to deal with the insecurities that come out of being in a position that I was in. When you're bullied for that long, and when you're told you are the problem, there is something wrong with you for so long, you start to believe it. But for all you kids out there that are watching this, I want you to know that you will get past that. School is just a small part of your beautiful, beautiful life. And you will move on, you will grow to better and bigger places, and you'll make an amazing life for yourself, despite what they do. But you need to heal. You need to move past that trauma and take care of yourself. Because it's not until you are able to stand strong and be like, none of that matters, will you be able to grow and to move forward in your life. And now here I am, trying to be the best influence I can for my niece and my nephew who identify as LGBT, and all the other kids out there who are watching and seeing what I do. I want you to know the place of strength that comes from. And if you're going through that right now, if you are dreading the thought of going to school tomorrow because this one bully is going to make your life a living hell, they're not going to matter soon. And I promise you, a couple of years after you graduate and you move on, those same bullies are going to send you a message on whatever social media platform is around then and tell you how much they apologize for what they did to you. I've gotten countless of those messages over the years. I don't respond to them because they don't deserve that much attention from me. But it is nice to hear. So just hang in there, baby. You're gonna get through it, and you're gonna be a beautiful, beautiful creature that this world is gonna love. But you have to go find your tribe. And you will. And it will be a beautiful tribe, and it will be people that you will love and adore for the rest of your life. So, thank you guys for listening to my story. It's all about growing forward and what you're going to be able to do to take the hard things that life gives you, mash it up, and make the most fierce, fabulous life you possibly can. You got this. I love you guys. Hey you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe below so you can get more fabulous videos like this. And if you are interested in the Sanctuary of the Treasure Coast, all of the links and information are going to be below for you as well. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.